Good morning and welcome to the Good Builder podcast. We have a crazy special guest here today. We wanted to speak with this gentleman for a long while, and the first time I actually bumped into him, like I've been watching him for a long while because he's very accomplished, but he was an architect that turned into one of Australia's most successful entrepreneurs, and now he leads the strategy and the success behind Canibuild. And welcoming to the studio the legend Mark Deacon. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good as. Thanks for having me on board. Long
Yeah,
time in the making.
it has been, mate. I know the first time, guys, that he came up, we really wanted to speak to him, and unfortunately, we weren't able to make that happen. But we went to lunch, and I sat down with him for 2 hours. And even just sitting down with him for 2 hours, he was so curious and inquisitive about the Good Builder and what we do and how we do things. And I learned so much just from sitting with you, mate. So it was really cool, to sit with someone who, there's not many people that kind of sit on the list that you've been on. I'm too old now to even hit them. So that's gone in my life. I'll never tick that box. But could you tell me a little bit about yourself, Mark, where you came from, how it all started? You've got a wild story. I don't want to tell it for you, but it was crazy. Tell them about the castle.
Yeah. So it's been a bit of an interesting journey. So as you mentioned, started out as an architect straight out of high school, and I went and studied a degree in architecture and went on from there and started working for a few different architecture practices. But when I was working as an architect, I always just felt a little bit stale. I felt like every week was a little bit the same. Although we're working on different projects and some of the projects that we were working on were quite exciting, it didn't feel like we were building anything or growing or going anywhere. And being a little bit entrepreneurial at heart, when I was at school, was always doing side hustles, just felt a little bit stagnant in that role. And so I ended up at the age of 21 going out and starting my first business.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
it was quite daunting at the time. As a young 21-year-old. And shortly after, I ended up joining forces with my former business partner with a company called Superdraft.
Yeah.
And we saw an opportunity in the market where there's a lot of architects and builders out there who are great at what they do in terms of their core skill set, which might be, designing or, building homes. But where we found they often struggled was generating consistent work, the marketing, the admin side of their business. And so they would go out, they'll start their business, they'll be all excited, and they'll rely at the start on word of mouth, family and friends. But shortly after, their family and friends would dry up, right? There's only so many family and friends one can have. And they didn't have a scalable marketing strategy to actually be able to grow and sustain their business. And it was quite sad because we saw a lot of the time, these people were excited to go out and start their own business. And within, 6, 12, 18 months, they were back, working for someone else because their business was unable to sustain that growth. And so, we saw an opportunity here to be that backbone in these and help support a lot of these businesses. And, there was a number of other platforms on the market at the time, which are still running today and quite successful, like High Pages and Service Seeking, which I'm sure many of your listeners would know about, and they would provide leads for these companies. And although they did tick a box for these companies, from speaking to a lot of architects and builders, they were quite frustrated with the business model because you would have to pay for a lead, and then it would almost be like a race to the bottom where it would be a bidding war, and often the cheapest price would win the job. And this created quite a lot of frustration within the industry because the good builders or the good architects out there who may be charging, a fair price that might be above the bottom of the run price would lose the job. And these companies would still have to pay for that lead. And so we wanted to approach this challenge a little bit differently and almost position ourselves like the Uber for the industry. And so if you've ever caught an Uber before, you would know that the experience is a little bit different where, an Uber driver doesn't go and pay for a lead and bid on a lead. It's not like they get, hey, here's a new ride and start quoting on this. And, and if the person at the other end wants to go with you, they will.
Wow.
Instead, they offer live projects basically to the driver. As an Uber driver, you would get an alert, here's a new opportunity. Do you want to accept or decline it? And
Yeah.
so we decided to do the same thing for
Wow.
the AEC industry. And obviously, it's a little bit more technical than driving from A to B. There's a lot more parts involved. And so that was a challenge we went and undertook. And we developed IP and technology that would allow us to scope and quote projects on behalf of the professionals.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to be able to offer live projects to the architects, to the builders that they could either accept or decline. And then we had a project management system as
Yeah.
well. But it was it was quite an interesting journey because obviously going from working for another company as an architect, stable job, weekly paycheck,
Yeah.
going out and stepping from that environment into running your own business, it was quite daunting. And for anyone who has gone out and started their own business, would
Yeah.
know that when you start a business, there's no income, right? And if there
Yeah.
is any income, it gets all reinvested back into the business. So you have very little, if anything, to actually live off. And so
Yeah.
at the time, I was recently married that
Where
year,
I remember
and
you telling
my
me.
wife and I had no choice but to move into a garage. One of my
Yeah.
mates had a garage, and this wasn't a garage that was renovated and jazzed up. It was, just imagine, 6x6 garage, oil stained floors. In one corner, we had a toilet, no walls, just a toilet sitting there. Other corner was a small shower with just a glass panel, and then plonked in the middle was a dining table. And so we could never have friends over because if you're eating dinner and someone needed to go to the toilet, it's just there.
Right
So
there. Oh,
yes,
mate, I remember you telling me this, Mark, when we sat at lunch, and I just wanted to let you speak then because and I didn't want to cut in on any of it because it is a phenomenal story. Like, you created something that was next level. It's never been seen. And the other thing that I love about you, man, was who at 21 in their right mind starts a business, moves into a garage. At 21, you would have found me at King's Cross at the nearest nightclub, drinking all I could, partying as hard as I could, and not coming home till Monday. You know what I mean? And look what you were doing. Yeah, mate. Sorry. Please
mm,
proceed. So you was living in this garage. You had the dining room in the middle. You're working from there. You've got a toilet with no
yeah.
walls.
Yeah, it was.
What'd you
It
call it,
built a
Mark?
lot of resilience. Put it
Yeah.
that way. And unfortunately, my wife, I find her crying herself to sleep most nights, and I use that to actually fuel me to make sure I got to make this work. Like
Love it.
I've put my poor wife through this situation. I've got to make this work. And we bootstrapped it and self funded it for the first couple years, and
Wow.
then a couple of years down the track, I was invited to a business trip down in Antarctica. And on this trip, there was a lot of high net wealth individuals, and was able to have the opportunity to pitch our vision and our business
Wow.
to a few of these individuals. And we managed to secure our first investment at that event. And we went on to secure 8 figures in investment capital from venture capital firms, high net worths, and family offices as well.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's what then allowed us to really scale and scale fast. We scaled to 6 figures in revenue, and then on to 7 figures, and eventually turned over 8 figures in revenue. We were named in the BIW Fast 100 list as the 8th fastest growing company in Australia at the time. And we then got a little bit, I would say, probably too ambitious, and we started to pioneer a bunch of other tech companies in the building industry. We launched a company called Viz 360, and we
yeah.
pioneered virtual display homes,
Yeah.
leveraging VR
Yep.
and AR
I
technology, which at
remember
the
seeing
time
it.
was cutting edge. And
Yeah.
so we allowed basically these home builders, rather than having physical display homes, to be able to have virtual display homes, and would partner with product suppliers to advertise their products within these virtual display homes. We also launched a company called ScanHub, which is run by another gentleman. At the moment, it was 3D LiDAR scanning, and we would create digital twins
Wow.
of homes as well. And so, yeah, things were going well, and we achieved a lot of amazing things, but unfortunately in 2020, obviously COVID hit,
Yeah.
which obviously was a bit of a challenge for us as many other businesses during that time. And
Yeah.
shortly after, then the investment markets started to dry up as well. And so, for an early stage, fast growing tech company relying on investment capital to continue that growth, it was a bit of a perfect storm, and we faced a number of challenges within our business. We managed to get through those, but given the challenges, I made the decision at the time. Starting a young family, didn't want to be so engrossed into running business and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So I made the tough decision to step away from that venture, and my business partner
Wow.
and a new board were appointed to continue running the company, and that's where I then ended up jumping on board another exciting, fast growing tech company in this space called Canibuild, which is where I am now.
Yeah.
And we're doing some pretty amazing things, and helping builders within this industry tackle some different challenges. And so I'm the chief commercial officer there now, and loving it, and taking care of the go to market strategy across marketing, sales, and
Yeah.
also customer experience.
Mate, I don't know what to say about your history. It's just phenomenal, man. Like, I think you need to make a movie out of it. Like, that is so cool. I think I've said it before when I talked about Tony Gore from Creation Homes, actually. Like, I'm too old to play sport anymore, so my idols are business people. And when I got to meet you at Sydney Build and the man that you were, and I was like, we were like little old Good Builder. I think we had 2 followers at the time, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Az from the Good Builder. Will you come and have a chat with me anytime, man?" And I knew your history. I knew what you did. I was like, "Holy shit, I got some dude from Forbes wanting to talk to me." And that is so cool. And you're such a humble bloke. And I think that is, it's a phenomenal history, mate. So
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
it's so cool, Mark. Like, that sort of stuff should be celebrated because you bring innovation into the industry. Like, those 3D things that you bring into the industry, they were game changing for the whole industry. They allowed builders that couldn't afford display homes to. I saw it with my own eyes with builders we work through. We work through with a bit of your technology in several builders and other platforms as well, I won't lie. But, just the concept of that technology changed building, like changed the customer experience, changed the investment that builders actually had to put in to market themselves and stuff like
Mm,
that, communicate what they could do. Phenomenal, mate. I think you say it just like in passing, but what you've done is pretty significant, mate, at such a young
appreciate
age.
it.
Yeah, no, I congratulate you, mate. And that comes from the bottom of my heart. That's all for real. So now at Can I Build? You're the head of strategy and customer success and all that sort of thing. So what do you actually do at Can I Build? Like, what does Can I Build do for some of our listeners out there that don't know what it?
Yeah, sure. So we're an AI powered software tool that helps building companies and their customers to be able to instantly know what's possible on any plot of land instantly. As the
Yeah,
name suggests, can I build? Can I build
yeah,
this
it's
home, this
cool.
pool, this granny flat, this shed on this parcel of land? So the way it works is, if you're a building company, you would upload your design catalog. So,
Yep,
some of our customers, they might have 10 designs, 100 designs, 1,000 designs. They'll upload that into the platform. And then from there, they can search any address. So when they have a
yeah,
customer walk into their showroom or call them up on the phone, they can search their address, and be able to select one of their designs, place it on their site. And then from there, they'll get access to all of this site information, whether it's setbacks,
yeah,
overlays, underground services, even
yes,
contours as well. They get access to that at their fingertips, and it allows their sales reps to be able to instantly produce quotes. We can also generate site plans from our
yeah,
software as well. And also, we've got real time 3D as well. So they're able to visually see the design in 3D on the block of
yeah,
land with the slope of the site without having to get a 3D renderer involved and spend days generating that. It's instant. And that's what
yeah.
we're all about, is how do we provide building companies and their sales teams these instant answers to help sell homes faster, and they can start building quicker as
Yeah.
well.
And Mark, I saw it in real life. I think we chatted, and I was involved in a company called Avondale Homes, and I remember the salesperson there when they first discovered you guys at Can I Build, and we were a young company as well. That was my only other startup, really, nothing like you. and it didn't, have the success that you had. But anyway, Canibuild was a part of the story. And what happened was I remember the salesperson, and I was doing the front end marketing and helping a bit with the sales. And I remember going to a display home, and they had this customer, and they're like, "What's your as?" And they bring up Canibuild, and they put the person's home on their land, and they're showing where they've got to bring in the services. And this customer was just like, "Wow, you guys are great builders," and it just added that bit of trust to our company. They could visualize it, they could see it, it was possible. And they were trying to plot pools and all this sort of thing. It was phenomenal, man. And I think, most building companies should just have it, within
Yeah.
their operations. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's all about, nowadays, it's not just about, being a good builder and being able to build homes. Like, it's a competitive market and competitive landscape. And it's
Yeah.
now all about customer experience and how can building companies separate themselves from their competition by being able to, give those wow moments to their customers, that customer experience that makes them go, oh, wow, like, and tell their friends about it as well.
Yeah.
And so tools like Canibuild allow building companies to provide that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did skip a question there that I did want to ask you was around the digitalization of the construction industry. When did you sort of see an opportunity and you thought, this needs to happen within the industry, Mark? When did that sort of
Yeah. So, like, if we look at the building industry, I think we all agree it's one that's typically slow to adopt any new digital technology. It's a
I
little bit
agree.
archaic in the way it operates. And, in our business, we always joke like our biggest competitor is pen and paper.
Yeah.
So, it's like, how do we get builders out of the mindset of doing things manually? And
Yeah.
you often, if you go to a job site, like, you don't see builders having this same mindset when it comes to adopting power tools for their job site. Like, you
Yes.
don't see
Wow.
builders on site, going around with a screwdriver, screwing in screws. Like, you see them with a power drill, right? You don't
Yeah.
see them with a shovel manually digging holes. Like, they'll get an
Yeah.
excavator in to
Yeah.
to do it as well. Same with, like, hammering a nail in. They're not like doing it with a hammer. They often have a nail gun. And so
Yeah.
we see this, the building industry is typically fast to adopt technology when it comes to things on the job site, building tools,
Wow.
but tend to neglect leveling up their back office,
Yep.
and typically slower to adopt digital power tools to be
Yeah.
able to help streamline their operations and increase their sales.
I love how you made that analogy, man. I have never heard someone talk about it like that, and we have never had someone talk about it like that on the Good Builder podcast. And I just couldn't communicate it in my head, and I think you just have. I love it.
Mm.
You're completely right. Sorry, I cut you off. Sorry, keep going, Mark. So they've got the power tools on site. They're very familiar with that, aren't they? Like, very familiar with chopping wood and screwing in screws and banging in nails, and they just want to make that more fast and efficient so they can build homes quicker. But what they don't
Mm.
think about often is exactly what you're saying. What are the power tools in the offsite side of the business that can also help you with your efficiency and build quicker as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I always, anyone who I speak to, I'm always saying, like, if you've got these tools available that can make your life more streamlined, take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Because no different to someone who's ever used a nail gun, it's like, once you use some of these power tools, you don't go back doing it the manual way. It's almost like your eyes get lit up and you're like, oh, wow, why didn't I know about this earlier? Why didn't I start using this earlier? It's made my life so much easier.
Yeah, yeah, it is so good. And speaking of making life so much easier, so with Can I Build, we'll get back on track with that. You've had I hope this is correct. You've had 1 million site assessments that you've done to date, probably 1 million plus now, because I think we spoke about this a few months ago when we were supposed to do the pod, Mark. And you've got 8,500 plus clients across Australia. What's sort of driving that level of adoption?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so we're super proud to have been able to support building companies across Australia. We operate now in New Zealand and the US and Canada as well, and being able to help support these building companies, streamline their operations, their pre-build process, generate sales faster. And we've now got over 80% of Australia's top 100 builders as customers, the likes of GJ Gardner, who I know you're very familiar
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
Metricon, Burbank, Rawson Homes, Stroud Homes, as well as some leading pool builders as well, like Barrier Reef, Blue Haven, all customers
Wow.
of ours. And as you mentioned, we've done over 1 million instant site assessments using our tool. And I think the thing that is driving this adoption is the realization of the time savings. As I mentioned before, our tool makes that pre-build process so much quicker rather
Yeah.
than that salesperson having to, for an initial customer, like go out to site, even with
Yeah.
someone who might not be able to build what they want on site, get those instant answers rather than having to speak to their draftsman to find
100.
out whether it can be built. I'm not sure how many builders are doing it like this currently, but when we first started, builders would get little cutouts of their designs and a printout of a site and
Still happening.
rotate the house on the site to figure out if it's going to fit or not.
It's still
Whereas with
happening.
our tool, it's all digitized and able to be streamlined. So
And
I
3D,
think,
and all those other things, Mark. Yeah, you're completely right, though. It's still happening, mate.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, I think what's really driving that adoption is just the builders realizing, they can now have an inquiry come through, instantly cite their design on the property, check compliance,
Yeah.
topography, utilities, generate site plans, quotes, visualize 3D, and realizing that this is just a better and more efficient way to do things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool, Mark. You said that Canibuild is across several countries now. And this is a bit off script, mate. But which country do you think is the most tech savvy? Which one's picking it up the fastest?
Oh, good question. I would say
You
it's
don't have
pretty
to
much
answer it.
on. Yeah, I say it's pretty much on par.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you in terms of like talking specifically to the Canibuild tool,
Yeah.
it's been designed like our founder and CEO Tim. He's a builder, but also got a computer science degree. So it's like that combination between
Right. Yeah.
understanding how software works, but also understanding how the building company works. And prior to
Yeah.
starting Canibuild, actually ran his own successful building company, and so he gets
Didn't know
how
that.
the building industry works.
Yeah.
And we have designed the software knowing that builders aren't necessarily the most tech savvy. And so it's been
Yeah.
designed by builders for builders with simplicity in mind. And so using the tools a little bit similar to searching and addressing Google Maps. You literally just got one search bar, like a Google search, one
Yeah.
search bar, you type the address in and the information comes up instantly.
Mate, I remember the salesperson giving me the laptop afterwards. I was like, "What is that?" And they're like, "Can I build?" And I was like, "That's so cool." And they gave me the laptop, and I remember I did it. He goes, "Look up a lot of land." And I remember me and my wife, we bought 2 lots of land in Gympie, which were in flood zones at the time too, Mark. So they were really hard to sell. We couldn't build on 'em. So we ended up just selling them. But anyway, I think Can I Build might have pointed some stuff out around that. And we ended up selling them to somebody. But anyway, I remember using the tool and just going, man, like, I don't need any training. I'm pretty cool with
Mm,
this. I am a
mm.
little bit tech savvy and I'm a nerd. I like computer games and all that stuff as well. So I can kind of pick up things, but I didn't think it was real hard at all either.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we offer customers or have a customer success manager assigned who's there to help train our customers on it. But a lot of our customers just
Yeah.
bypass that because they just jump in and they start using it and playing
Yeah.
around with it and find it pretty easy to pick up.
Oh, mate, it's so cool. Well, talking about tech and everything, what do you reckon is the biggest opportunity in tech right now for builders, Mark?
Yeah, so when it comes to technology, because the rate of adoption now is starting to gain momentum, I
Yeah.
actually see it just as much of a threat as it is an opportunity for builders who don't adopt some of the latest technology, and whether it's more traditional software or whether it's AI tech as well, because you have to think about it. Like, if you're not using it, your competitors are.
Yeah.
And so, if they can get answers to their customer quicker, more professionally, and at a lower cost because of reduced overheads,
Mm.
then they basically get a competitive advantage over you. And,
Yeah.
you know, you have to ask yourself, like, which company is going to look more professional? The one that's doing things manually, pen, paper, or the one that has digital tools in place and providing that experience? And, which of those companies, like if they're deciding whether company A or B, like which one are they going to trust more?
Yeah.
The company that looks more professional or the company that looks like a backyard mob? And remembering at this point, they're yet to see the quality of your work. Like they haven't actually seen you build anything yet. So they're making an impression of your business based on how that sales experience is like, how that pre-build experience is like. And so I would, to answer your question, as I would say, as much of an opportunity it is for building companies to adopt these tools to be more effective, more efficient, I see it just as much of a threat for those that don't adopt.
I love it, mate. I love your answer, and I love when you brought trust into it. And I love that you're not just talking about you understand building, you understand like the holistic business side of things. You're not just plugging a platform. That's what I love about you, Mark, because you're talking about how it impacts the entire business's reputation and how
Mm.
that's seen in the client eyes and the customer experience and the customer journey. Phenomenal, mate. It's so cool. And just to keep talking about, you know, digital and digitalization and technology and that sort of thing. What do you think what's hype sort of versus reality in AI and building at the moment? Where do you think AI fits?
Mm.
Because there's a lot of talk around it. Hey, Mark, like people
Yeah,
using
there
chat.
is. Yeah, AI is the buzzword at the
It
moment.
is, mate.
Yeah, and
You're the king of it, I reckon.
speaking to a lot of individuals, both in the building industry, but even in the tech world, where you know where you're dealing with people who are immersed with technology, there is this sense of overwhelm because it's moving so fast. There's all these
Yeah.
new tools coming out, and it almost creates this paralysis of resulted from overwhelm. So I was actually asked recently at a conference I was speaking on about AI and artificial intelligence. And one of the people in the crowd asked the question, like, where do I start? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many tools out there. Like, how do I know which one to go with? And my response to this question was rather than looking at all these possible tools that you can adopt and going, which one should I put in place, which can be quite overwhelming because there's so many, I would bring it back to just business principle, like first business principles, which is, as a business leader, you're going into a quarter and going, what are our current challenges right now
Yeah.
or opportunities?
Yeah.
What what do I need to do to fix this current challenge?
Yep.
And so what's number one on that list? And rather than looking to solve that problem with a technological solution or a non-AI solution,
Yeah.
look to see how can I solve this with the latest technology, the latest AI tech that can solve it. And we went through this same process within our business where, we had a few different challenges within the organization. As we were growing, we were
Yeah.
finding that we are getting too many leads that our sales team weren't able to call them straight
Yeah.
away.
I remember
And
you
so
telling
we
me.
thought, how do we solve this challenge? Now, without thinking through the lens of AI, we would have historically solved this problem either through hiring more sales reps, getting our sales reps to work split shift, potentially hiring more middle management to drive these sales team to call these customers quicker. But with an AI first mindset, we go, how can we solve this with the latest AI tools? And this is where we then started to invest our time into researching what tools are available. And we ended up implementing what's called an AI SDR, or an AI sales agent, which actually calls up our prospects instantly. And so it fixed this speed to lead problem that we had and resulted in a better customer experience. Now, we didn't implement this as a solution to go, how do we cut costs? How do we get less humans in our business? That wasn't the approach we took. We had a challenge within the business of speed to lead. And so
Yeah.
it was actually around how do we provide customers with a better experience, because we didn't want them to be waiting hours or days for a response. And so the AI sales agent is able to call the customer instantly. It answers their questions instantly, whether they put an inquiry through at 8 p.m. at night, they get their questions answered. And then they also qualify the prospect, because our sales team also have the challenge of sometimes dealing with non-qualified prospects, people who are early on in the process or time wasters who aren't
Yeah.
actually a good fit for our business. And it actually qualifies them. And if they're not qualified, it politely lets them know. And if they are qualified, it has access to our human sales team's calendar and actually books in the appointment and the demo then and there. And
Yeah.
so we implemented it as a solution to a problem. And we've now rolled similar technology out across different areas of our business. Like in customer support, we had a similar issue. Time to respond to a customer issue was more than 24 hours. Not a great experience for customers. And so we go, how do we solve this with AI? And so now we have AI customer support agents as the first line of measure, where they actually respond to the customer's questions instantly. And it now solves over 80% of customer support questions.
That's crazy, man. That is crazy.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
80% solved through AI, and then the 20% that isn't able to be solved through AI get escalated to our human support team, who are now not rushed in the process. They're not just trying to get through their big list of tasks. They can really dive in deeper and do a much more thorough job of supporting customers and helping solve those more technical troubleshooting questions.
Yeah. What an answer. I remember sitting at lunch with you and you took me through a bit of that. And I remember saying to you, I'm like, we're a small team at the Good Builder. We got a few kinks and problems. And you're like, think of it this way. And you went through exactly what you just went through. And I won't lie, like, we'll put this to air. I went straight back to the office and I started thinking like you. And I'm like, what are my problems? Okay, I need someone out there
Mm,
doing some cold lead generation for me. Unfortunately,
mm,
we don't have the resource at that particular point in time. Get some AI doing it. Just some more, get some cold outreach going.
yeah,
We started to get some responses coming in, and that was all from you, mate. Like, that's
that's
freaking cool.
fantastic.
You know what I
And there
mean?
is some incredible technology available right now, and it
Yeah.
can help small businesses, compete with the larger ones, because you can build teams of AI agents. And one of the things I've seen companies that have adopted AI well, and also companies that haven't adopted AI well, and it comes
Yeah.
down to the approach that they use. The ones that I've seen have not adopted AI well is where they might sign up to some AI tech. Let's just use the sales agent as an example, and they would implement it and expect from day one, with very little training and very little implementation and proper setup, that it would work perfectly out of the box. And they look at the experience and go, that's not what I was hoping it would do, and then they would cancel it.
Yes.
Whereas the companies that get the most value and positive impact from AI,
Yeah.
those that onboard AI agents like they would hire a new employee.
Yes. And
So
train.
think exactly. So think of it like, if you're hiring a new employee, how would you onboard them? Well, you don't just, here's your desk. Well, I hope you don't do this. Here's your desk. Good luck. You
Used
you
to.
train them on your company. You teach them about all the ins and outs of your company.
Yeah.
And when they start the role, you give them feedback. If they're not doing something correctly, you tell them, this
Yeah.
is where you got it wrong. This is how you should answer that situation in the future. And the same things with AI agents. You need to train them. You need to then monitor their performance, give them feedback. And once you've given them feedback, they then learn. And once they've learned and got to that point, you've now all of a sudden got an employee that works 24/7, doesn't take smoko breaks, doesn't take mental health days, and there's no risk of them quitting.
Yeah.
They're there with you for as long as you want them. And so it's worthwhile investing that time in at the beginning. And it might take 1, 2, 3 months. But like I said, once
Yeah.
you get through that phase, you've now got a 24/7 worker that can provide your customers with a better experience and streamline your operations and help you scale and grow.
Phenomenal, mate. Absolutely. And you are 100% correct. This has got so much value, this pod, for so many people out there. I'm going to pump this, man, because like people need to listen to this podcast. Builders need to listen. Tradies need to listen. Even if you're not in the construction industry, I would listen to this, man. Seriously, it's changed our business. It's changed our life. And yeah, exactly what you said there around training. Case in point, I did implement it, and then I was speaking with I forget the lady's name, but She's the CEO for the awesome. Oh no, not awesome. She's the AWIC, Australian Women in Construction, so the biggest. And I was talking to her, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna do a free pod with you. I'm gonna, do this. I want to dig into what you do for women in construction because we appreciate women in construction." Anyway, I'd been talking to her myself, and then my AI started talking to her, who was trying to charge her for a podcast, and she was like, "Wait a minute, didn't you say we're going to do this for free and it's all for
Just trying
the
to upsell.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my god. I went back to my little sales agent. I went, go through the conversations in my inbox. If I've spoken to them before, take a note and please do
Mm,
not send them an invoice. I freaking love it. And as I said, excuse me, but you did change our business that day just by talking to your mate. So
fantastic.
thank you very much. Uh, oh yeah. But I don't know what I can owe you because you know too much. I can't give you much, mate. And so you talked a bit about the roles and how AI can impact roles in a business and fill roles in a business. How does Can I Build then change the roles of people in the business? There's obviously AI involved in Can I Build and it does different
Mm.
stuff. So how does it impact like builders, designers, tech, salespeople? What does it do?
Yeah, so it more of, like I would say, streamlines the workflow.
Yeah,
You know, different customers of ours operate a little bit differently. Sometimes a new inquiry goes directly to their sales team. It might go to someone in the admin team who typically do like an initial assessment. They might do a Google search, look up council, just to kind of assess whether or not what they're looking to do can be done and do a bit of a qualification. And then they
yeah,
would pass it on to their sales team. And so speaking to our customers, like that process historically used to take 30 minutes, an hour
yeah,
to go through
yeah.
that, whereas now they're able to do that instantly.
Wow.
And then for early stage customers, rather than going out to site, having to do measurements on site, even do spot levels to assess the slope of the site, they're
Yeah,
able to now get that information instantly. And if they want, they can do it virtually as well, especially for some remote sites, some that are
yeah,
close to where your team are based might not be so much of an issue going out. But sometimes you might get an inquiry from someone that's a little bit further out and you contemplating, do I travel to site or do we even do this project? Whereas with Can I Build, you're able to still service that customer who might be a bit further out, be able to get access to all of the site information, the topography, take measurements of the site without actually having to step foot on the site. And so I would say that's the key areas. But we're now, and I can't go into too much detail because we're yet to formally launch this. We will be launching this in the next month or so, but we are launching what's called InstaDocs. And this
okay.
is leveraging the latest AI technology where it's going to enable building companies to produce permit ready plans with the click of a button.
Whoa.
So
Why
think
the
about,
government should pay you money for that.
yeah, well,
Efficiency in building. This is what, like, I don't know why like, sorry, I'm getting passionate about this, but they're talking about all this stuff with building and cutting red tape and all of that. And one thing I think they're missing out on in the conversation is actually investing in tech.
mm,
Like government investment in tech and companies like yours that, you're doing stuff like to help speed up builders and make them more efficient. And as you said, I don't see like the government or master builders or HIA, excuse me, but like, I'll say it, but putting any workshops on in tech and educating
mm.
builders tech. And I know you guys do as yourself, but those bodies should get involved. Anyway, sorry, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually quite interesting you mentioned that. I'm sure your listeners are familiar with the fires that happened 12 months ago in
Yeah.
LA over in the States,
Yeah.
and which, burnt down the Palisades and half of LA. And so they've got the challenge of having to rebuild, you know,
Yeah.
not 10, 20, 100 homes. They have to rebuild thousands of homes. And one of the biggest challenges is actually the approval process,
Yes.
because you think typically the council has a certain number of personnel to handle the volume of approvals. But imagine like such an influx of people requiring approvals in a short
Mate.
space of time, and it creates a bottleneck. And
Mm.
so we've now partnered with LA City to be able to streamline this process and speed
What?
up the assessment process, which would have taken months, is now being able to be done within days.
You're doing
And
that over
so,
in LA?
yeah, we're quite excited about the partnership that we have with them, and it's going to really help streamline this process. And we're hoping that the governing bodies within Australia will also catch on and realize there are better, more efficient ways to actually handle this process, and leveraging technology like ours can definitely help facilitate that.
Wow. Far out. I don't think I can get any more impressed by you, Mark. I'm at the level of impressive. I don't know how you say it, but freaking
I
that's
wish I could
amazing.
claim the development of this technology. We've got really smart people within this company, way
Okay.
smarter than myself, who have been able to
That's
build this technology.
that's
And like I said, it's going to be revolutionary in terms of that whole approval process and being able to click a button, have permit ready plans, and just streamline. Like, it's the part of the process that I'm sure all building companies, they don't wake up and go, "Oh, I can't wait to do another set of approval documentation to go
yeah,
to go to council to get
yeah,
approved." They just want to be able to get out there, start building, start
yep,
construction. That's where they get paid. So being
yeah.
able to do anything we possibly can just to streamline all of that pre-build phase is basically our vision and our mission.
Anthony Albanese, please get in touch with these guys. You probably don't listen to my podcast, but seriously, someone from your team, I'll send it to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. That's so cool, Mark, and it's cool. Like over in LA, they're thinking of it. Then obviously, you know, I don't like following America all the time, but sometimes it's good to follow suit, and seems like a very good thing to follow suit. So, look, it looks like there's heaps of benefits with Can I Build, and one of the things that I found when I was at Avondale was, we were a smaller builder. I think we built 24 homes a year or something like
Mm.
that, 25 homes a year. But what it gave us was we were in villages. I remember we were building. We didn't have a display home either, but we were in Wood Hill here in Queensland, and we were up against Oracle Platinum Homes, who have now not in the industry anymore. But they were phenomenal at this acreage space. They were our biggest competitor and big builder. And then we had Hallmark Homes across the way, but we were able to
Mm.
compete, and I think Can I Build did. So what do you think? Do you think Can I Build, enables that smaller custom builder to also compete with some of those tier ones as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't just say just Can I Build. I think a lot of the different software available and now, especially with AI technology,
Yeah,
the small companies that can adopt this technology and adopt it properly can definitely give themselves an edge and start competing with some of those larger builders, because
yeah,
they're able to do more with less.
yeah,
Gone are the days where you need to build a team of 100 personnel within your company to
yeah,
be able to facilitate the work. And it's quite exciting at the moment, even with robotics. I've been following quite closely the developments in robotics technology, and
yeah,
companies like Boston Dynamics out
yeah,
of the US are now developing robots for construction sites. And I think we're a long way off having robots replace human jobs completely. I think your listeners can breathe a sigh of relief to know that. But I think robots can definitely help with what happens on job sites
yeah,
as well, where, I saw this video of this robot basically carrying bricks and material
yeah,
from one spot to the builder, and
yeah,
they're not having to go back and forth, carrying material, which I'm sure takes up a big chunk of the building time. And
yeah,
once again, it's probably the part of the job that builders don't like
yeah,
doing it, and they probably typically offload that to the apprentice. So
yeah,
seeing these robots basically handle this grunt work, so the builder can work on the fine motor skill task of what they do,
yeah,
is quite incredible to actually witness some of this technology in action. I think those companies that are able to adopt this, like I said, will be able to compete with some of these larger companies
yeah,
without necessarily having to build these massive teams.
yeah, yeah. That would be phenomenal, and I think it would also boost the longevity of builders and tradesmen and women because you're not so like
Mm.
I know this is probably gonna be right up your alley, Mark. This is probably my best investment, but it hasn't come to fruition yet. But I invested in a company that, it does scans from, like, you can do it, a doctor can do a scan, a CT scan or whatever you call, from anywhere in Australia, and they've got these machines in remote communities that are robots, and it'll scan the patient because of all, there's not so many doctors in some of these remote communities out there and some of these remote islands. And basically, one of the benefits they said was, and I was like, oh, so the benefits that, there's not these machines, the machines are too big, or there's no real operators in these remote communities. And they said, yep. But the other one is that the doctors and the physicians have a longer lifespan, because when they're traditionally using these machines, it actually wears out their joints and things, and they end up retiring and stuff. So it's quite cool, the
Interesting.
stuff. I know I'm drawing a
Yeah.
long bow, but it's technology has a range of applications that's just beyond getting the job done. I'm not saying it's gonna save humanity, 'cause I'd fear that, I'm gonna be totally wrong 20 years from now and I get killed by a Terminator. But, like, it's pretty interesting, the way that technology is going, and I love how you're so across it. I follow you, and I follow you on LinkedIn, and I always see your feed pop up, and I'm always like, "That's interesting. That's interesting." It's very cool, mate. Real
Yeah, that's a
cool.
really good point. Like those different benefits of technology
Mhm.
just outside of efficiency. I think that's a really good point you highlight there
Yeah. No,
around
thank
changing the longevity of someone's role as
yeah,
well, especially in those more
yeah.
backbreaking tasks.
Completely, mate, completely. Now, we know you know a lot about technology. I think you've obviously demonstrated that. But one of the things too is, obviously you're a pretty good leader, mate. You led a company, started a company which was, one of Australia's fastest growing. So that's pretty phenomenal. What's sort of your philosophy on culture and team, and how you build these high performing teams? Because Can I Build is also, you know, quite exploding at the moment. So how do you do this stuff?
I think I actually commented one of your posts recently on a
Oh, really?
similar topic. I
Yeah.
think it was something to do with that, family culture,
Oh, yes.
and forget
Oh,
exactly what
bringing
I
from
said, but
nuts and straits around.
yeah,
You said family. We're not a family.
yeah. And so, like, I hear sometimes within organizations, this family culture where, we are a family, or they'll communicate to their team, we are a family, or welcome to the family. And it always makes me cringe a little bit because, you know, because, family is unconditional, right? It's,
Yeah,
they're your family. And I see the workplace as more of like a sporting team as opposed to
I
a
love it.
family. You know,
Yeah,
if you're wanting to become, win that premiership, win that trophy, you need to build a high performance culture, which is
yeah,
different to building a family.
yeah,
And that high performance culture is built on what are you willing to tolerate?
yeah.
And end of the day, your culture is based on what you're willing to tolerate. And, I'm sure some of your listeners, may have been part of a company or even part of one now where there are frustrations within team members, whether underperforming sales reps or people within the organization that are toxic. But the
Yeah.
question comes back to those leaders. Are these things being tolerated within the organization? And I remember years ago when we were in the early days of Superdraft, and we were scaling the sales team up. And we only had, I think at the time, about 5 salespeople in the company. And so it was quite a small team.
Yeah.
So we were very reliant on every single individual. And we had our top sales performer within the organization, and he would outperform everyone.
Wow.
But unfortunately, he was also very toxic to the culture, quite
Okay.
negative, and would almost bring other people down to elevate himself. And we used to tolerate this for years, not years, probably more months. We used to tolerate it for months. And we would always come back to the point of like, this person is our top sales performer. Unfortunately, we can't let him go because if we do, it's too much of an impact on revenue. And
I
so
get
we
it.
always just put up with it until one day we just decided, you know what, like enough's enough. And we made the hard call almost out of frustration, and we fired him, let him go.
Wow.
And it was scary. Like letting go your top performer as an early
Yeah.
stage company.
Scaling like
And
crazy.
Yeah,
Did you
he
have
like
investors
his
at that time too, Mark? Sorry to cut you, mate. Did you have investors at that time? So you
Yep,
obviously
yep. We had we had investors and shareholders at that time, and so it was quite scary to make that call. And it was the first time I saw the benefit of doing the bold moves to preserve culture. And what I saw on the other side of making that tough decision was incredible. We saw within a very short space of time all of the other sales team members rise up.
wow.
And within, I believe from memory, it was about 2 or 3 months,
Yeah.
the sales results surpassed what they were with that individual. And so it didn't take
Amazing.
long for the others to rise up. And what we saw
Wow.
following that was the sales team culture became our number one. We're like the leaders of positive culture within the whole organization.
Wow.
And it almost sent a message to the organization. I think the people within the company saw and go, you know what? The leadership here will do what's needed to value or preserve the right culture that we want. And so from that day, I've now seen firsthand and witnessed firsthand the impact of making those bold decisions to preserve culture. And I'm a firm believer that your culture is what you tolerate. And so, the question that I'm constantly asking myself and of the leaders that I lead is like, what are you tolerating today? Like, is
Yeah.
there some kind of behavior? Is there some kind of underperformance happening? Have you had the conversation with those individuals? Do
Yeah.
they know what a win looks like?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you supporting them overcome whatever challenges and roadblocks they're facing right now?
Mm.
And if you are supporting them, you provide them everything, you've given them guidance, you've given them feedback, and they're still not meeting the level that you expect, or they're not, I guess, fitting the culture that you have, then
Yeah.
sometimes the best thing that you could do for that individual as their leader is actually to redirect them
Wow.
into another organization. Because just because they don't fit and work in their current role in your organization doesn't
Yeah.
mean they won't fit and succeed in another role in another organization. I've seen people in my teams who have not been able to perform, move into another team and succeed. I've
Yeah.
also seen people who haven't quite been successful elsewhere come into one of my teams and succeed as well. And so
Yeah.
there's a culture and an environment and a role for everyone. And I think as leaders, we need to be able to have those tough conversations and also know, and sometimes the best thing we can do is actually redirect them so that they can feel, well, that's their full potential.
That's so wise, mate. That's so cool and very brave, mate. I know there'd be a lot of builders out there. It's the same sort of thing I remember again when I was at GJ's and similar sort of conversations that, the salesperson's a bit, but they sell a lot of homes, you
Mm,
know? And so you keep them on and it's, I think that's a great lesson. I love when you said bold moves, bold moves, bold moves, big decisions, make an impact. I think that's
absolutely.
it. I'm gonna I think I'm gonna hold on to that one as a saying, mate. Very cool. I could talk to you all day. I'm so sorry, but we're gonna have to sort of get through a few questions, and there were a few other ones that I wanted to talk to you. One of them was, what are some of the biggest trends in prop tech do you see, for the next 3 to 5 years, Mark, for our listeners out
Yeah,
there, mate?
yeah. So, like, obviously, the things we've talked about so far, I think, are massive. I think robotics is going to play a big part
Yeah,
within the construction industry over the coming decade. Absolutely, we're starting to see it hit a point of inflection of the technology being able to meet the needs. And
yeah,
in the not too distant future, there's lots of talks around humanoids and people having personalized robots to do household chores, and I think
yeah,
that's going to start seeing an inflection point in robotics. And so I think this technology will definitely be applied and adopted within the construction industry. So I'm really excited to see how that evolves.
yeah,
I also believe generative design. So I mentioned earlier how we're looking to launch InstaDocs, which is
yeah,
going to be the permit ready plans leveraging AI technology and machine learning. And so I believe this is going to be massive for the industry as
yeah,
well. And just a lot of the manual tasks that are being done currently over the coming
yeah,
decade is going to be automated. and
Yeah.
streamline. And this is going to see an evolution of existing roles. It doesn't mean, like we've seen in past generations, new technology has come
Yeah.
and jobs have been replaced, but new jobs are created. And I read a recent report in the World Economic Forum report that stated that over the next 5 years, 90 million jobs will be
Jeez.
replaced because of artificial intelligence and AI.
Yeah.
90 million.
Yeah.
But in that
Yeah.
same report, it mentions
Wow.
that 130 million jobs will be created.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the good news is that more jobs will be created
Yeah.
than replaced.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
key is for individuals and business leaders to make sure they're above the curve and staying on the forefront of this technology. So they're not part of the 90 million, they're part of the 130 million that are actually benefiting from this technology.
Yeah, yeah, that is so cool, mate. So you're a part of sort of almost two communities, aren't you? You've got the construction community that you're a big part of, but you've also got that tech and innovation side that so many people, and I see you at so many events that are not necessarily construction focused sometimes. It's just tech, it's AI, it's HubSpot things that you speak at, one of the
Yeah.
biggest brands in the world in tech. So it's very cool to get your sort of point of view on all this sort of
Yeah, and
stuff.
it's really exciting going to a lot of these tech events and
Yeah,
bumping into either customers of ours or people from the
yeah,
construction industry. And I have noticed over the past few years an increase in the number of construction
wow.
leaders or employees who are actually attending these events, which is a really good sign for the industry. It's showing there's a much larger adoption of
Yeah.
technology, because 10 years ago you'd be lucky to find one person from the construction industry at these events. Now there's quite a lot.
Wow, that's super cool, Mark. Well, mate, we're going to have you back on because we've skipped about half the questions that I wanted to go through with you. So let's get you up here in a couple of weeks and we'll have you actually physically here. But I did have one last question for you. We're called the Good Builder, and hate to put you on the spot, but what do you think makes a good builder, mate?
Yeah, good question. Good builder. So I mentioned it before around nowadays, to be a good builder, it's not just about building a good home
Yeah.
for a customer. It's about the experience you give them. And I believe to be a good builder, you need to create wow moments, because by creating wow moments, you create warm customers. So warm word of
Yeah.
mouth customers. So the more
Love it.
wow customers you can create, which basically means providing those wow moments for them through that customer experience where they go, oh my gosh, that stood out from anything that I expected.
Yeah.
That's what's going to make them either share something on social media, talk to their friends at a barbecue. And it's through that you create those word of mouth customers. And
Yeah.
that's what enables you to grow sustainably and grow your business. So that would be what I believe makes a good builder.
I agree with that too, mate. I love it. I love the answer. Warm equals wow. I think that is so true. And word of mouth is what you want in the end. I think you want to, every builder, I think if you can save money, and that's what they got to think about. Look at all the shiny platforms you can invest in. Look at the ones that are actually going to make a difference to your customer experience. And you'll find out that you'll actually save money, and that money will come out like you'll make your sales just from that word of mouth because of the customer experience. And we saw that at GJ's when we wanted to become the most trusted builder. That was what it was all about, becoming the most trusted so our word of mouth would be better. We didn't want to spend more marketing money. Yes, we had to spend it to communicate ourselves, but it was the end goal was exactly what you said there. So,
Absolutely.
Mark, mate, you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much for your time today. I do apologize once again that when we had you up here first time, we didn't have you on, but we're going to have you on again. That was phenomenal to
It's been
just
a pleasure.
talk tech. Oh, and mate, as I said, when we had lunch the other week too, mate, it's helped the Good Builder business. So I think the rest of, our audience that listens to us should have a good listen to this pod and learn a few lessons from Mark, and you
Thanks.
could probably even get in touch.
Thanks for having me on board. And I love the work you're doing at the Good Builder. The industry needs it, and massive supporter and fan of what you guys are doing at the Good Builder. So
You're a
well
legend.
done.
Thanks, East, mate. Just before I let you go, mate, how do people get in touch with Canibuild? Who should they get in touch with? And
Yeah, so feel free, jump on our website, canibuild.com. That's Canibuild.com. Feel free also to jump on our LinkedIn. We are on socials, Instagram, Facebook. Feel free to reach out to myself if you have any questions. Mark Deacon. I'm active on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out as well.
Yeah. And I would say to everyone out there, go and follow Mark because, mate, it is so cool to follow you because you learn so much. That's why I've got you on here. You know, I've learned so much just following your feed. So I'm a bit of a stalker. Go and have a stalker, Mark. Have a stalker, Canibuild. And once again, thank you, Mark, for your time. And mate, we'll have you back on.
Thanks, Ads. Talk soon.
You're a legend.